2. Yes, yes.
Audio test, 1, 2.
Hi, Tammy, it's Peter. I just want to confirm you can hear me.
Hi, Peter. Yes, I can.
Great, thank you. So if we could just start the live stream. Chandra, if you're doing the recording, can you start the recording?
Peter, it's Chandra. I have the live stream on. It's been on since we started.
Okay, the stream's on?
Yes.
Thank you.
Okay.
Okay, well, good afternoon, everybody, and apologize for the delays. We had some technical issues, but our amazing staff were able to solve it so that we can continue, so thank you for that. So welcome to our meeting of the Brampton's Audit Committee. All members are present except for Councillor Brar. Okay. Next, we have the approval of the agenda. Does any member wish to add any business item to today's meeting? Seeing none, we have a motion moved by Councillor Tour to approve the agenda. All those in favor? Motion carries. Now we move to declarations of interest under the Municipal Conflicts of Interest Act. Do any members have a declaration of pecuniary interest under the Municipal Conflict of Interest Act for any matter to be considered on today's agenda? Seeing none, the clerk may so note for the meeting minutes. Committee, as part of our consent process, I will read out each agenda item that is subject to the consent motion, and any member may verbally identify an item to be held for debate during the meeting. Any item not held for debate will be considered as part of the consent motion and voted on for approval. I'll start reading the relevant agenda items, and members can identify any items to be held for debate. 5.1 and 7.1 is going to be held for external delegation. 5.2 and 6.1 will be held for a presentation. 6.2, staff report, audit committee terms of reference, and internal audit charter. So I'm going to hold it just for an update on what it's being, the differences, sorry. 6.3, staff report, corporate fraud, governance structure. Consent. Staff report, internal audit work plan status update. Consent. Staff report, status of management action plans Q1 2023. Consent. Staff report, corporate ethics hotline, quarterly report. Consent. And 8.1, citizen member appointments to audit committee is held for discussion. The clerk will summarize those items held by members for consideration or not part of the consent motion or prior to approval of the motion.
Through you, Mr. Chair, the following items will be considered by the committee with the remaining balance to be approved as consent. 5.1 and 7.1 regarding the 2022 audited findings report and audited consolidated financial statements. 5.2 and 6.1, the presentation and report on development charges. 6.2, the report on the audit committee terms of reference and internal audit charter. And 8.1, the discussion item on the citizen member appointments to audit committee, with the remaining items as you cited to be approved as part of the consent motion.
Great. I have a motion moved by Councillor Paleski to approve the consent motion. All those in favor? That carries. So next is 5.1, presentations, delegations. 5.1, We have a delegation from Maria, lead audit engagement partner at KPMG LLP Chartered Accountants regarding item 7.1, the 2022 audited consolidated financial statements for the city of Brampton. Welcome, Maria.
Thank you. Can you hear me all right?
Yep.
Okay, perfect. Good afternoon. Thanks for having me here today. So in the interest of time, we have the report up, but in the interest of time, I will take this report as read and I will only highlight some of the key items. We'll start on page 4, if that's okay. So that's our audit highlights page. These highlights summarize the significant aspects of the audit and they provide a good overview for the committee. In terms of the status, at this stage, we have completed our audits substantially. The only items that are pending are noted on page 5, which are standard items that should be pending at this point due to the approval process of the financial statements. There are no significant changes from the audit plan that was communicated to management and the audit committee earlier this year. All of our audit procedures were completed as planned in accordance with materiality, which was 21.2 million, and the audit misstatement posting threshold was 1 million, a little over 1 million. There was a restatement of certain comparative balances as a result of a cleanup exercise by management. This was related to deferred revenue obligatory reserves. This exercise was undertaken by management to enhance the accuracy of the financial information, especially related to deferred revenue obligatory reserves that is included in the financial statements. This adjustment is a non-cash adjustment. It's an accounting adjustment which is required for public sector accounting standards, and it does not impact your budget or your tax base. The accounting standards require revenue to be recognized in the year when the expenditures are incurred. So what the city did was they changed their process in 2016 to recognize revenue based on the actual expenditures incurred rather than estimated at the end of the year. However, at that time, the city didn't take a look back at all the projects that were there pre-2016. In the current year, they undertook this project, this cleanup exercise they call it, to make sure that they're able to quantify the adjustment related to all the previous years. We did obtain that schedule of adjustments from management, and when we looked at it closely, we did identify that there was no particular individual year where there was an adjustment which was material by any means. If there would have been an adjustment, we would have asked them to correct it in that particular year. So the result why they have this adjustment is really cumulative balance over many years that has accumulated due to this exercise. Our audit team has completed our audit procedures related to these balances, and we have gained sufficient and appropriate audit evidence related to this adjustment. Our audit opinion is not modified in regards to this, and we will be issuing a clean opinion similar to prior years. We will be adding a paragraph to our audit opinion to identify that there has been a restatement related to comparative balances. There are no other adjustments to report, whether corrected or uncorrected, other than this restatement. We've also noted here that we did not identify any unusual or fraudulent transactions that came to our attention as part of the audit procedures. There were no significant control deficiencies noted either. There were no new accounting standards that came into effect in the current year. There are some new ones that are coming into effect for next year, which are included in our appendices, so please do take a look. The biggest one would be the asset retirement obligation one, which is a complex estimate standard, so it will require a little bit of a heavy lift for municipalities. There are also some additional standards related to financial instruments, FX, and some presentation items that are up for adoption next year, but they're supposed to be a lighter lift for municipal clients. There was one new auditing standard that was adopted in the current year, and the requirement of this audit standard was really to take a deeper dive by the audit teams to understand the underlying processes that are in place that are our clients, and we did do that. We held additional discussions with management to be able to understand the underlying processes, and we've implemented the standard appropriately. Pages 6 and 7, if we could quickly move to pages 6 and 7, we've covered our 2 presumed risks of fraud. I want to point out that these risks are not specific to Brampton in any way. In fact, they're required to be considered for all of our audit engagements. So we have included them and considered them, and we've completed all required procedures related to both of these presumed risks. and there are no items to report in that regard. Pages 8 to 11 provide you with details of our procedures related to significant areas of financial statements. We've provided you with our summary of findings related to that as well. There are no other significant matters that I want to highlight here other than what's reported on the report. Overall, it was a clean audit, and I do want to take this opportunity to say thank you to management for their cooperation and diligence during the audit. With that, we get into the appendices, so I'll pause here if there are any questions.
Thank you for your delegation. I don't see any questions. Should I move up 7.1 and take them together, or just receive this one first? Yeah? Okay. Thank you so much. So we're going to move to 7.1 staff report titled 2022 Audited Consolidation Financial Statements for the City of Brampton. So do any members have any questions or comments for this staff report? Councilor Paleshi.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Really no questions or comments. I just wanted to welcome you. I know Kevin Travers has been here a very, very long time. So you're the new face that will be dealing with a lot of the financials of audit. So welcome. We'll get to know each other really well, and hopefully you'll have a long, enjoyable tenure like Kevin did while he was here. For sure. Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you, Councilor Paleshi. Okay, that's good. So to move receipt of the staff report and the delegation, it's going to be moved by Councilor Vicente. All in favor? That carries. Where are we at now? Okay, next we have on our agenda is item 5.2, staff presentation regarding the development charges 2023. We also have the related staff report, item 6.1. Presenting today, we have Claire, Director of Internal Audit.
Thank you, Chair. I'd like to actually introduce the staff who were doing the audit to present it, but before that, I'd like to give some introduction to our new staff. Min, if you could please stand up so that I can. Min is our new auditor. She came actually join us on a very snowy day, drove here from New Brunswick. She used to be with the Auditor General of New Brunswick. She has over 10 years of experience in internal audit and accounting. She also has both the CPA and CIA designation. And the development charge audit is the very first audit that she participated in after she's been with us. Thank you, Min. Thank you. So, and then Brad Cecile is our manager of internal audit. Brad is the lead on this audit, and I would like to ask Brad to please present the slides. Thank you, Brad. Please take over.
Thanks, Claire. Okay. Good afternoon, everyone. Are we presenting a summary of the development charges audit? Can everyone hear me?
Yep.
It's coming through the audio? Okay, great. Development charges are applied to all new developments and redevelopments in the city. The Development Charges Act grants the city the authority to impose development charges. Development charges collected for the city are approximately $75 million a year, making development charges the third largest source of revenue behind property taxes and user fees. In order to determine development charges, a background study is conducted every 5 years. The study identifies infrastructure needs resulting from growth and the associated costs. The city adopts the development charges bylaw every 10 years or less. The city last completed the background study and enacted the development charge bylaws in 2019. The city also collects development charges on behalf of the Region of Peel, Peel District School Board, and Dufferin Peel Catholic District School Board. Next slide, please. The objective of this audit was to assess whether development charges are calculated in accordance with relevant bylaws, an insurance certificate and letter of credit or security deposit is in place for each development, building permits are issued only after all required documents are in place and all charges have been collected, a process is in place to ensure that development charge payments have been made for all properties, Cash in lieu of parking charges are supported and approved. Reserve funds are allocated to capital reserves according to the development charges bylaws. And development charges collected on behalf of the Region of Peel and the school boards are accurate and transferred timely. The audit period was from January 1st, 2020 to December 31st, 2022. Finding number 1, manual and inefficient billing for invoices with frozen rates. In 2019, Bill 108 was introduced, which allows developers to lock in or freeze development charge rates at an earlier stage of the development process. Our review of the billing process found that for invoices with development charge rates that were frozen, the applicable retro rates and interest must be manually entered for each development charge fund. Staff must enter approximately 20 data fields for each type of development for any invoice with frozen rates. The impact: manually entering multiple fields for each invoice line is inefficient and increases the risk of incorrect development charge amounts being billed. Finding number 2. System control to automatically apply current rates is not functioning when rates decrease. Bill 23 rendered certain services no longer eligible for funding from development charges. This resulted in an overall rate decrease of development charges applied by the Region of Peel. The system does not automatically apply the new lower development charge rates to any existing invoices in the system, and the user is not notified of the rate change. The impact: this resulted in 4 developers being overcharged by a total of $288,000. City staff were notified of the overbilling by the Region of Peel, and credits were issued in 2023 to correct the error. Next slide, please. Finding number 3. Development charge rate updates in the system are not always vetted and approved. On February 1st and August 1st of each year, development charge rates for the City of Brampton are adjusted based on Stats Canada's Building Construction Price Index. Our review of the process to update rates in the development charge system, called Amanda, found the following. Rate updates in Amanda are not always approved by a manager, and a report that shows rates in Excel format is not available in Amanda. This does not allow for an efficient review of newly entered rates. The impact of this: lack of vetting and approval for rate updates can result in incorrect rates going undetected. Also, even small errors in development charge rates can lead to significant differences in the calculation of development charges. Next slide, please. Finding number 4. Current certificates of insurance are not always on file. Developers are required to provide an updated certificate of insurance every year, at least 30 days prior to the expiry of the current policy. Our review found that 11 out of 25 development charge samples did not have an updated certificate of insurance on file. Follow-up emails requesting proof of insurance renewals are sometimes sent months after the policy has expired. Impact: having outdated certificates of insurance increases the liability risk to the city. Finding number 5. Standard operating procedures are not current. The administration of development charges includes a number of different processes, such as invoicing, updating rates, cash collection, reconciliations, and obtaining insurance and security, among others. Currently, there are no standard operating procedures within development finance. There is a work instruction document. However, the document is from 2016 and no longer reflects current processes or systems. The impact: not having an up-to-date standard operating procedures can result in inconsistent or inappropriate execution of processes. SOPs are an important tool in training and orientation for current and future employees. In conclusion of the audit, overall, development charge processes are operating effectively and proper oversight is in place. Aside from the 25 samples where all development-related documents were obtained and reviewed, we also performed an analytical review on all development charge payments within the audit period. Our review found that nothing came to our attention that indicated that any rates were not calculated according to the current bylaw. Based on the 3 previously mentioned findings that can reduce billing accuracy, staff should implement IT enhancements and strengthen the rate update process to improve billing controls and efficiency. They should also improve the monitoring of insurance coverage to ensure that the city always has updated certificates of insurance on file for each development. Next slide, please. The province announced in May it would be moving forward with an audit of municipal finances and development fees for 6 Ontario municipalities, including Brampton. We included this chart to highlight some of the main differences in the approach between our audit and the province's audit. The main objective of our audit was to evaluate the effectiveness of processes and controls around development charges. The main focus of our audit was more at the processes, staff, and transactions level. The provincial audit will be a third-party audit, and the first part of it will be to understand any potential or perceived impacts of Bill 23. That analysis will be over the next 10 years. So they'll be looking at potential impact from 2022 to 2031. The second part of their audit is with regards to capital projects. They'll be evaluating the accountability, effectiveness, and efficiency of the activities that support investments in growth-related infrastructure. And they'll be going back to 2018 to review different infrastructure projects and how projects are being delivered. Next slide, please. This last slide shows the city's development charge reserve balances versus the future spending commitment. So as you can see, at the end of 2022, there was approximately $384 million with all the combined development charge reserves. Out of that 314, or approximately 81%, have already been committed to future capital projects. In terms of the difference between the 384 and 314, there's approximately $70 million that has not been allocated as of the end of 2022, and that represents approximately 1 year of development charge revenue. That is it. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Brad, for that presentation, and thank you to the team who worked on it. Lots of good information, and just before I go to our list, I want to welcome the new staff to the city of Brampton. You know, I will be biased, but I think we have the most amazing staff here, so I just want to welcome you to the team. And I will go to my list. Councillor Paleshi.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Just with respect to the DC review, I always understood, I didn't think Amanda had anything to do with the DCs.
Yes.
Amanda is the program that implements or holds DCs. It's not that, it's not the other one? Which is the other?
Through the chair, where I think Councillor Paleshi may be referring to, and I apologize, I'm not as intimately familiar with this report, but typically DCs are paid to the municipality once the building permit is issued. Amanda is the software platform that our building department uses to issue a building permit. So without having gone through this report, perhaps that's the inference that the report author is making.
And the other software does have something to do with development charges as well, right? When the application first comes in?
No, that other software just tracks the status of development applications, and you pay an application fee,
Okay.
but it has nothing to do with the issuance or rate of development charges.
Okay. With respect to the insurance for 11 out of 25 certificates, of the ones that we didn't have on file, were they, like, how significant is not having an insurance certificate on file? Is it particular for each application? Is it have anything to do with the company itself being bonded? And did we potentially have a LOC on file instead of that insurance certificate?
So, through the chair, I can, based on my understanding and our review, it's a requirement that each development has the letter of credit as well as a valid insurance. In terms of the risk, that might depend on that might be on a development by development basis. I know it's just to, prevent any loss against any potential injury or damage of property or anything potential that could happen throughout the course of a development. Again, the 11 out of 25 isn't necessarily that they didn't have insurance. It's that we haven't obtained a current certificate of insurance. So sometimes there's a second request and a third request, and then we do get it. But yeah, as a requirement of the subdivision agreement or site plan agreement, those agreements lay out that they have to provide an active certificate of insurance and renew it every year.
So Steve, is that not just a check mark in a box when we're going through site plan or even?
Through the chair, the certificate of insurance are generally basically put with certain pieces of infrastructure that are kind of deemed complete once those pieces of infrastructure are in place. So perhaps what I might suggest is an offline conversation with my staff and internal audit to better understand sort of how that is being positioned in this report, and then seeing what SOPs need to be enhanced to ensure that it's just simply a mechanical nature rather than an approval of the land use being sought.
Okay.
Chair, permission to speak.
Grant.
Sorry, so two things, consideration. It raised the issue around the insurance requirements. One of the challenges we have with enforcing is we don't have a legislative mechanism, unlike LCs. So when we have a letter of credit, there is an auto renewal.
Right.
In case of insurance, we don't have that. And we have no hammer to enforce it. So the only way is we keep sending these letters for them to get back to us. I'm planning to meet with the manager of risk and insurance and see if there is any way to get sort of legislative mechanism to enforce the policy. In terms of LCs, we are totally secured. There are no issues there. There could be liability implications as far as the insurance goes, but that's what we'll be following up on.
What do we need a certificate of insurance for?
Sorry?
What do we need it for?
Oh, typically for site works, to make sure that the obligations that the developer is supposed to deliver, they deliver it. And that's what we keep it. And if there is any liability in the process that happens, we cover it.
Okay.
That's
And those certificates of insurance, we want them site-specific?
Yes.
Why? Why not just make sure that the company's insured?
Sorry?
Why not just make sure the company's insured?
We'll have to review the process and see if there are ways we can address it.
I'm not asking you to review anything, I'm just asking, why does it have to be site-specific when, if we know that the company's bonded, if we know the company has insurance overall, why aren't we satisfied with that?
I suppose that's something we could ask the insurance folks. We just follow the procedure.
If I may help address this question, if Councilor Palashi through the chair. If you recall, at the February 21st, 2023 audit committee, we had a report called the Claims Management Audit. And in that, we talked about the city's general issue that we have on lack of updated certificate of insurance. And here's what the issue actually we were talking about that time, okay? The city of Brampton requires its vendors, everybody, not just those related development charges, to provide a certificate of insurance as a proof of insurance coverage, because you were talking about, because that is the proof that they have insurance. If you don't have they updated, you don't know if they have insurance, basically. To protect the city from potential claims arising from the vendor's actions when performing contract work, okay? So the system reported at that time we talked about, the system reported showed as of fact April 12th, 2022, out of 674 active contracts in the bids and tender system, 377 has expired certificate of insurance on file. So we pointed out at that time, I believe staff are doing some work to rectify the situation. Now, as to exactly where we are, I can, have a bit of chat with the staff and bring an update to City Council or the Audit Committee. So at that time, we talked about, we took additional 30 samples of active contracts. First, we did analytics, the entire population of the vendors that's supposed to have a certificate of insurance on file. And I said it's about, 56% has expired. And then we did a specific sampling because sometimes they have updated, they just did not provide to the city, So then we took additional 30 samples of active contract to manually verify the status with certificate of insurance on file. We found that 60% of the sampled active contract in the bids and tender system also had expired certificate of insurance. It's very hard to know exactly which one has expired. That's why we did an analytical review and then we did a sampling review. Okay.
So I think, and I completely understand. I think what I'm getting not confused, I'm trying to separate is, the bids and tenders, procurements, vendors are one side they're one animal. Developers in development applications, I think, are something different. And that's what I'm because we're talking about DCs and we're in particular just talking about developers essentially with this report, is we have so much security now that I'm just seeing if there's an opportunity to uncouple specific site certificates with just, when I was in the private sector, we used to have to send out certificates of insurance to some companies that were corporate or ISO or something. We had to show proof of insurance to make to do business. And I guess I assumed at the time, or what my insurance company had said to me was, once I'm insured and I put them on the list of companies that I deal with and provide certificates of insurance, they're notified automatically if that insurance fails or anything. If there's a renewal, they're automatically sent a new insurance document. So I'm just trying to see if there's ways where we can kind of uncouple that too with, the umbrella over everything to say in the development industry, we no longer need you to be site specific, if that's an opportunity, as long as that developer is insured anyways. That's for you, not for me, but that's kind of where I was going with that. Steve?
Through the chair, what I might suggest is we could take that away and look to perhaps our subdivision agreements that we execute between the city and the developers, and see if there's any clauses in those subdivision agreements that could be tweaked to sort of capture that sort of broader umbrella approach that you're considering, Councillor, as it relates to sites. And then we can report back, whether it be through PDC and or working with internal audit on that.
Great. Steve, I guess my last question I think that I had is the comment for finding number 5, the SOPs that are not current. I know we've had lots of discussions about, and I know that you have been working on kind of updating a lot of SOPs in planning. I assume that the SOPs that audit looked at aren't the ones that are being updated, or else you would have provided a comment to say that they're currently being updated. Just any comments on
Yes,
this?
through the chair, your assumption is quite right. And the reference in item 5 is to development finance, which falls within our finance department. I might ask either Raghu or Alex to perhaps speak to that.
I just need to know that we're updating SOPs. I don't want
Yes,
anything
we are.
lagging. Perfect. And in terms of this audit report, are you planning on bringing anything to, has this been shared with planning?
This report?
Yes.
One sec. So this report, our main auditee is development finance. Development charge finance is the finance team. So the way that we normally issue our letter of engagement or report to is we issue to the commissioner that's looking after the auditees. So in this case, it will be Alex, and previous will be Rick.
Okay. Finance under Alex, but Amanda, DC's.
Yeah,
Go ahead, Alex.
through the chair, the report that's in front of you in the presentation still hasn't been vetted through the planning department, was brought to this committee. That's something that was overlooked, and we need to take that back and understand what happened there.
Okay, please do. Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you, Councillor Paleshi. All great questions. Just when we talk about the certificates of insurance, I instantly, get worried because, we always got to make sure that the liability doesn't fall on the municipality. And I know there's recourse in where we go out to procurement and the city's actually paying those bills. Prior to payment, a certificate would need to be provided and updated. But when we talk about developments, we're not paying them anything. So the recall there is quite different. And from my experience, the reason that it was always job specific was to make sure that the developer was also not too much of a risk to the insurance company, and the insurance company knows that they're doing this amount of work or this much projects, and kind of falls in. It would be the same way that their bonding works. But to piggyback on Councillor Paleshi, if these projects have that much security, I would definitely wonder if there would be a way to just blanket the insurance for the project. But in doing so, we got to make sure that, if they're starting to develop and something happens outside, we got to make sure that we're covered. So I do appreciate all the questions and the follow through there, Councillor Paleshi. 100%. 100%. Okay, so thank you for that. There was some direction that was kind of given there do you want any type of, no, you're good? Okay, we all know what we're doing. Okay, great. So we now have to receive, now we have to receive the presentation. So Councillor Paleshi to receive the presentation. All in favor? That carries. That would bring us to our next item, I think it's 6.2. Now this item, 6.2 is a staff report titled Audit Committee Terms of Reference and Internal Charter. This was held by me, and the reason is I just want to make sure that we are all on the same page as to what the items are changing with joining these two together. I think it's important just to highlight them quickly. And I was hoping to have that ability for someone to do that. Claire, could you give us a quick overview of what the changes are in bringing these two together?
Sure. Thanks, Chair. I think if City Clerk can help bring it to the end of this page, we'll highlight that. Okay. So basically, there were minimum changes made to the audit charter from the February 21st, 2023 audit committee, the version that we presented there. Just to summarize, these two changes are just to formalize practices that's already in place. The first change is to maintain independence due to the small size of the team. Internal audit will not be providing consulting services except at the request of the City Council on governance and risk matters. Okay. The second change that we made was, again, is already in practice. Internal audit staff can no longer accept temporary assignments to other city divisions, including secondments. The city solicitor has been consulted on adding this condition to the audit charter. Basically, our audit charter is modeled after the IIA model charter. And in that charter, we were instructed that it says the Director of Internal Audit's authority, the Director of Internal Audit cannot audit any operations that it had hand on in the previous year. And because we have a very small team, and we were pretty much in the condition that if one of our staff has been seconded to other department, they return to us, and the internal director has to take precautions not to involve them in any of the areas they used to work. And because of a very tiny staff, it's hard for us to guarantee that. So that's why we made the second change.
Thank you, Claire. And who was, just for reference, who was all a part of bringing these together?
Who is the one bringing, oh, the three parties that we worked with City Clerk and Peter himself, and worked with Samir as well, just to review. And we also, Samir, our city solicitor, also involved our, the new employment lawyer that hired, I believe, Sana Malik. She's online as well. And just to kind of look at the properness and, basically we just put the two documents together, and the city clerk helped us to put it into the format of a bylaw. So it's a draft bylaw right now for your, there's no other changes, basically.
Okay, great. Well, thank you for that. Good with the changes. Does anybody have any questions on this? Seeing none, I have a motion by Councillor Tour to receive the report. All those in favor? And that carries.
I just wanted to acknowledge actually Richard from our
what's that?
internal audit.
Approve the report? We have a motion by Councillor Tour to approve the report. All those in favor? That carries.
I forgot to add, within our internal audit, Richard is the one really worked with us on this as well. So, because he has the previous background on, the chronological changes to our audit charter. So,
okay,
thanks to Richard.
Let's see where we're at. The rest, 6.3, 6.4, 6.5, and 6.6 were all in consent. Am I correct there? That will bring us to 8.1, discussion item regarding citizen member appointments to the audit committee.
Through you, Mr. Chair, perhaps I could start. So I just wanted to bring to the committee's attention, the last meeting held in February, the committee passed a recommendation that was approved by council resolution that 2 citizen members be recruited for the audit committee through the Citizen Appointments Committee. And the clerk was requested to post the vacancies as open for applications from citizens for a 3-week period. We did open the application window in late February and kept it open actually until the end of May. And just for the members' benefit, there was a recommendation from the Citizen Appointments Committee that carried after the Audit Committee recommendation that the Audit Committee assume responsibility for the evaluation and interview process as appropriate for citizen member appointments to the Audit Committee. So the responsibility will rest with this committee. And I can advise that we have 3 applications that have been received at this point for the up to 2 positions. We're in the hands of the Audit Committee now. My suggestion would be is the clerk's office can work with the chair and the Audit Committee members, if it's the will of this committee, to schedule a brief meeting to, 1, evaluate the 3 applications and figure out next steps, which may or may not include interviews, depending on how the committee wishes to proceed. And doing that probably in time for either the council meeting, which is scheduled for the 28th of June, or possibly one of the meetings over the summer, as opposed to waiting till the fall.
Okay, so thank you for all of that information. I do see Councillor Vicente up to speak, so do you want to speak to that? Okay.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chair, and thank you, Mr. Clerk, for that update. So coming out of the Citizen Appointment Committee, we did want to have some advice and some of that decision-making process happen within this committee. Mr. Fay, through you, Chair, have members of the audit staff had a chance to look at those three applicants, and are they all of very good qualification?
Through you, if I recall, I may have shared two at one point, because at one point there were only two, but no, I haven't shared the current list. I just got the list last week. There was somebody that applied late before we closed it down at the end of May, but I will share that, which is consistent with the practice that's been followed by the Citizen Appointments Committee to have subject matter experts and lead departments be consulted on applicants as they come in.
So I would recommend that if the three applicants are CAs, CPAs, or otherwise qualified and highly experienced in auditing matters, that we could move today, if it is will of the committee, to have the three names move forward to, and that would go through you, Chair, to the Citizen Appointment Committee, or would we decide that here and now?
The committee is within the purview, through you, Mr. Chair, of this committee to make the recommendations to council. My advice is the committee may want to review the applications. I don't think there's enough information in the application submitted to make the determination that they all have CPA or other financial designations.
Okay, so then it would fall then to the next opportunity here of this committee to make that review and decision, correct?
Through you, Mr. Chair, yes, and we could schedule a special meeting of this committee just to deliberate on these and make decisions, as opposed to waiting to the next meeting, which right now I think is scheduled for the fall, or will be scheduled for the fall.
So let's refer then those three names back to the Citizen Appointment Committee. Mr. Fay? Yeah, Mr. Fay's thinking.
So through you, Mr. Chair, perhaps a solution, because there is a Citizen Appointments Committee meeting scheduled a half hour after adjournment of today's meeting, and 4 of the 5 members of that committee are present at this time, is perhaps, if there's direction given, that the clerk will advise the Citizen Appointments Committee in closed session of those names, and the Citizen Appointments Committee can deliberate on that and decide where to go from there, and it could include a recommendation to council on Wednesday to try and match this, but it would require some consultation with the Director of Internal Audit, because all three names, to my knowledge, have not been shared with the Director.
So if I may, and that's an excellent suggestion, Mr. Fay, through you, Chair, so perhaps if the Director of Internal Audit were perhaps available this afternoon to assist that committee with that decision-making process. Claire?
Yes, I believe I have discussed this, but I'd like to put it on the record, because when we were at the January 30th Council Education session, I had made it clear that since the citizen member, just like the audit committee member, will be monitoring my work, so it will be inappropriate for me to select who should be on the panel. But I have connected and recommended 2 Director of Internal Audit from the other cities that were willing to review, screen, and interview whoever you feel that. And the Director of York Region and the Director of Vaughan have already agreed to help out on this.
So just quickly, if I may, Councillor, we're not asking you to sit in the interview process. I think we're just asking you to review the credentials to make sure that they would be up to par. Has nothing to do with the selection of who would be making it. Am I correct in that? If you could review to make sure that they had the proper education to sit on a committee such as this one, I think is the ask, but not to select who would be choosing or anything like that. That would be up to the committee itself, but we just want to make sure that we are bringing in the appropriate people, and the heads of each department have helped us in that type of work already for this committee, so we wouldn't be doing anything different with this selection that we have with any other one. Mm-hmm. So if you would be available to review their credentials is I believe what we're asking for today. Am I correct in that?
That would be correct. That's actually perfectly stated.
Sure. Would you be able to just blind out the names, just so that I won't see who they are, but just give me the rest and I can.
Yeah,
Is
I'm
that
sure.
okay?
I'm
Just
sure.
to take some
I'm sure the
precautions
clerks
there.
can make that
Our wizard
arrangement.
at the clerk's office
Yes.
will be able to do that.
We have previously been written up because of this. I just wanted to.
Yeah, so, and if you would review it, you could just email us, all the members of this committee with your recommendations of these people do have the proper criteria. You don't need to attend the meeting.
Okay.
We're just asking for your input on the credentials of the individuals.
Okay, sure.
So
And
then,
that committee is in an hour.
Okay, no problem. I'll be there.
so then, Mr. Fay, I believe you have the necessary direction then to refer this to the appointment committee, citizen appointment committee, correct?
Yes, for consideration. Thank you.
Do we need to add that to the agenda in this context?
For the agenda for citizen
This
appointments?
afternoon.
I don't think so, because the way that the agenda was characterized, it's for deliberations on any appointments that haven't been made yet.
So moved then.
Is there any motion that's needed for this?
Perhaps if you want to pass a motion that requesting the clerk to bring the names to the Citizen Appointments Committee for consideration, scheduled for today, and to provide a blind copy of the applications to the Director of Internal Audit for a preliminary review.
You phrased it just like I was going to. So, well done.
That's what we wanted.
And we have that motion that we move by Councillor Vincenti. All in favor? Carries. Next is item 9, a member question period. Do any members have any questions regarding any matters on today's agenda? Seeing none, we'll move on. Number 10 is public question period. This is where we invite members of the public to come forward to the podium, ask any questions about any recommendation made by the committee regarding in today's agenda. There's a 15-minute limit for any questions in the public question period. Is there anyone present here today who would like to come forward and ask any questions? Seeing none. Is there any online?
There is no one online.
There's no closed session. Brings us to adjournment. Last item of business. Our remaining quarterly meetings for 2023 will be scheduled based on consultation with the Director of Internal Audit and the Clerk's Office. I have a motion moved by Councillor Tour to adjourn today's meeting. All those in favor? And that motion carries. This meeting is adjourned.